I don't know what to do with him anymore. Ever since that incident, he hasn't been himself. It's like something inside him just went out.
The power died at exactly 7:32 p.m., which seemed fitting since that's about when my marriage flatlined too. I stood in the doorway of our kitchen, toolbox still heavy in my grip, watching the digital clocks blink into darkness. The house felt different without electricity. Older, more honest somehow. Like it was finally admitting what a dump it really was underneath all those cheerful LED bulbs Carla insisted we install last spring. "Honey, I'm home," I called out to the empty rooms, my voice echoing off the peeling wallpaper. The sarcasm tasted bitter on my tongue, but it was better than the alternative, screaming into the void about where my wife actually was tonight. Another business trip, the third one this month. I dropped my toolbox on the warped linoleum and fumbled for my phone's flashlight. The beam cut through the gloom, illuminating the breakfast dishes Carla had left behind, her coffee cup still stained with that expensive lipstick she wore to important client meetings. The same shade I'd found smeared on a tissue in her car last week. But hey, who was I to question the demanding schedule of a rising attorney? Just because I spent my days rewiring other people's broken homes didn't mean I understood the complexities of legal work. At least that's what Carla kept telling me whenever I asked about her late nights at the office. I grabbed a beer from the still-cold fridge and popped it open, the sound sharp in the silent house. Through the kitchen window, I could see the Hendersons' place blazing with light across the street. Their power was fine. Of course it was. This house had been fighting us since we moved in 3 years ago. The previous owner, some old-timer named Gus, had done all the electrical work himself back in the 70s. Gus apparently believed building codes were more like suggestions and proper grounding was for pessimists. I'd been meaning to rewire the whole place, but between work and Carla's student loans, there was never enough money or time. Now, standing in the dark with my warm beer, I wondered if the house was trying to tell me something. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Lenny's number. Lenny Kowalski had been my sparring partner back when I still thought I could make something of myself in the ring. These days, he ran a small electrical business out of a converted garage on the wrong side of town. He was the only guy I trusted to work on this money pit without charging me an arm and a leg. "Danny boy," Lenny's gravelly voice boomed through the speaker. "Let me guess. That piece of mess house finally gave up the ghost?" The whole place went dark about 10 minutes ago. Breaker box isn't tripped and the neighbors have power. Think you could swing by tomorrow and take a look? Tomorrow? Hell, I'm just sitting here watching reruns and drinking cheap whiskey. Give me 20 minutes. That was Lenny, always ready to help a friend, especially if it meant avoiding his own empty apartment. His wife had left him 2 years ago, taking their daughter and half his tools. Unlike me, Lenny had seen it coming. While I waited, I wandered through the house with my phone light, taking inventory of all the things that needed fixing. The list was longer than our mortgage. Loose floorboards in the hallway, water stains on the bedroom ceiling, that weird smell coming from the basement that Carla claimed was just old house character. The basement. I'd been avoiding it for months, telling myself I was too busy to investigate the source of that musty odor. Truth was, basements creep me out. Too many horror movies as a kid, maybe. Or maybe it was just the way this particular basement felt, like it was keeping secrets. Lenny's headlights swept across the front windows as his beat-up van pulled into the driveway. I met him at the front door, and he shambled in carrying a toolbox that looked like it had survived both world wars. "Jesus, Danny, you look like hell," he said, squinting at me in the phone light. "When's the last time you slept?" "When's the last time you showered?" I shot back, but there was no heat in it. Lenny had earned the right to speak his mind. He grinned, revealing teeth stained by decades of coffee and cigarettes. "Fair enough. Let's see what kind of electrical nightmare we're dealing with here." We made our way to the basement stairs, our footsteps creaking on the old wood. The smell hit us as soon as I opened the door, that damp, moldy scent that seemed to get stronger every week. "Christ," Lenny muttered, covering his nose with his sleeve. Something definitely died down there. The basement was a maze of exposed pipes and cobwebs, the kind of space that looked like it belonged in a slasher film. Gus had used it for storage, apparently, because it was packed with old furniture covered in dusty sheets. The main electrical panel was mounted on the far wall, next to what looked like a workshop area complete with a pegboard full of rusty tools. Lenny went straight to the panel and started poking around with his multimeter. "Your main breaker's fine, but I'm seeing some weird readings on a couple circuits. Looks like old Gus might have been running some off-the-books wiring down here." What kind of off-the-books wiring? The kind that doesn't show up on any city inspection reports. Lenny followed a conduit with his flashlight beam. This line here runs behind that wall, but according to the panel diagram, there shouldn't be anything back there. The wall he was pointing to looked different from the others. Newer drywall that didn't quite match the rest of the basement's stone foundation. I'd noticed it before, but never really thought about it. Think there's a room back there? Only one way to find out. Lenny pulled a utility knife from his toolbox. Mind if I cut a little exploratory hole? I need to trace this wire anyway. I nodded, curiosity overriding my concern about property damage. Lenny carved a neat square in the drywall and pulled out the chunk of material. His flashlight beam disappeared into the darkness beyond. Well, I'll be damned, he whispered. Danny, you need to see this. I peered through the hole, and my blood turned to ice water. It was a room, a small, finished room that didn't appear on any of the house plans I'd seen. But it wasn't empty. Against the far wall sat a desk with what looked like computer equipment. Even in the dim light, I could make out the shapes of monitors, cameras, and other electronic devices. What the hell? I breathed. Lenny was already widening the hole with his knife. This is some serious spy movie mess, Danny. Help me make this big enough to crawl through. 10 minutes later, we created an opening large enough to squeeze through. The secret room was about 8 feet by 10 feet, with proper flooring and painted walls. Someone had put real money into this space. The desk held 2 computer monitors, a professional-grade camera on a tripod, and several pieces of recording equipment I didn't recognize. But it was the wall above the desk that made my stomach drop. Photographs. Dozens of them, pinned to a corkboard like some kind of perverted evidence wall. And every single one featured my wife. Carla getting into her car in the morning, Carla having lunch at that fancy place downtown, Carla walking into the law firm, Carla kissing a man I recognized as Travis Brennan from her office Christmas party. My hands shook as I pulled one of the photos down for a closer look. The image was crisp, professional quality. Carla and Travis in what looked like a hotel room, her hands tangled in his hair, his mouth on her neck. The timestamp in the corner showed it was taken just 2 weeks ago. Danny, Lenny's voice was tight. You need to look at this. He was standing next to a filing cabinet, holding a manila folder. Inside were more photos, but these were different. Intimate shots that could only have been taken from inside our bedroom. Carla undressing, Carla in the shower, Carla and Travis in my bed, in positions that made my vision blur with rage. There's more, Lenny said quietly. He opened another folder, revealing printed emails, credit card statements, and what looked like a detailed schedule of Carla's activities. Someone had been documenting every aspect of her affair with the thoroughness of a private investigator. At the bottom of the pile was a single sheet of paper with a handwritten note. Insurance policy. Use when ready. J. Jenna Walsh, Carla's best friend, and the woman who'd been encouraging her to spread her wings and not settle for less than she deserved. The same woman who'd been pushing Carla to take those mysterious business trips. I sank into the desk chair, my mind reeling. This wasn't just an affair, it was a setup. Someone had been planning this, documenting it, building a case. But for what? Danny, look at this camera setup, Lenny said. He was examining the equipment on the desk. This stuff is broadcasting live. See this red light? It's recording right now. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Not only had someone been spying on my wife's affair, they'd been watching me discover it. Every moment of my shock and rage was being captured for posterity. I looked directly into the camera lens. Whoever you are, you picked the wrong guy to have sex with. Then I yanked the power cord from the wall, plunging us back into darkness. The next morning, I sat in my truck outside Brennan and Associates, watching the morning rush of lawyers and paralegals stream into the building. Carla's silver sedan was parked in its usual spot, right next to Travis's pretentious BMW. How convenient. I'd spent the night going through every file in that hidden room, and what I'd found painted a picture that made my blood boil. The affair had been going on for 8 months. 8 months of working late and client dinners and weekend conferences. 8 months of me making excuses for her, defending her to my friends who'd started asking uncomfortable questions. But the real kicker was the folder labeled Exit Strategy. Inside were printouts of our bank statements, mortgage documents, and what looked like a draft divorce filing. Carla wasn't just cheating. She was planning to take me for everything I was worth. The house, the business, even my tools. According to the notes in Jenna's handwriting, I was going to be painted as an abusive, controlling husband who'd driven his ambitious wife into the arms of another man. The beautiful part was how they documented everything to support their narrative. Photos of me looking angry or frustrated, taken with a telephoto lens through our windows. Audio recordings of arguments we'd had, edited to remove context and make me sound like a monster. Even medical records from when Carla had claimed to have fallen down the stairs last month. A fall I'd never witnessed, in a house where she'd never been injured. They'd been building a case against me for months, and I'd been too blind to see it. My phone buzzed with a text from Lenny. "Found more stuff in the room. You need to see this." I drove back to the house, my mind churning with dark possibilities. The power was back on. Lenny had bypassed whatever end switch had been installed, and he was waiting in the kitchen with a laptop and a grim expression. Remember how I said that camera setup was broadcasting? Well, I traced the signal. He turned the laptop screen toward me. Everything in that room was being uploaded to a cloud server, automatic backup of every photo, every recording, every piece of evidence. Can we access it? Already did. The password was taped under the desk. Travis Carla, 2023, real subtle. Lenny clicked through a series of folders on the screen. But here's where it gets interesting. Look at the timestamps on these files. The earliest files dated back almost a year, long before the affair had started. Photos of Carla's daily routine, her work schedule, even shots of me leaving for job sites. Someone had been planning this for a very long time. "There's more," Lenny said. He opened a folder labeled Audio and clicked on a file dated 3 weeks ago. Carla's voice filled the kitchen crystal clear. "The house is worth at least $250, even in this market. With his business equipment and the settlement, I should walk away with close to $400,000. Travis's voice responded. "What about the mistreat allegations?" "Jenna's got that covered. We've got photos, audio recordings, even a medical report. Danny's going to look like a textbook case of domestic violence. No judge will give him anything. And after the divorce? After the divorce, we disappear. Maybe somewhere tropical, somewhere Danny's blue-collar buttocks could never afford to follow us." They laughed together, the sound like nails on a chalkboard. I closed the laptop with more force than necessary. "How long would it take you to make copies of everything on that server?" "Already done," Lenny said, patting an external hard drive. "Every file, every photo, every dirty little secret. What are you thinking?" What was I thinking? I was thinking about the 20 years I'd spent building my reputation in this town. The customers who trusted me with their homes, the suppliers who extended me credit, the friends who'd stood by me through thick and thin. Carla and her conspirators were planning to destroy all of that, to turn me into a pariah so they could walk away with my life's work. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. "I'm thinking it's time to level the playing field," I said. That afternoon, I drove to Murphy's Tavern, the dive bar where most of the local contractors grabbed a beer after work. The place was exactly what you'd expect. Dim lighting, sticky floors, and a jukebox that hadn't been updated since the Clinton administration. But it was also the nerve center of the town's gossip network. Anything said at Murphy's would be all over town by morning. Mick Donovan was holding court at his usual spot at the end of the bar, regaling a group of younger guys with stories about his boxing days. Mick had been my trainer back when I still had dreams of making it as a fighter. He was also the biggest mouth in 3 counties. "Danny boy," Mick boomed as I walked in. "Haven't seen you in weeks. How's married life treating you?" "Can't complain," I said, signaling the bartender for a beer. "Carla's been working a lot of late nights lately. Big case at the firm." "Yeah?" Mick's eyes lit up with interest. "What kind of case?" "Some kind of corporate thing, very hush-hush. She's been working closely with that Travis guy. You know, the pretty boy from her Christmas party." I let that hang in the air for a moment, watching as the other guys at the bar perked up. In a town this size, everyone knew everyone else's business, and Travis Brennan had a reputation as a player. "Working closely, huh?" one of the younger contractors said with a smirk. "That's what they're calling it these days." "Hey now," I said, putting on my best wounded husband act. "Carla's a professional. She's not that type." The doubt in my voice was perfectly calculated. By tomorrow, half the town would be speculating about Carla's late nights at the office. Over the next week, I began implementing what I privately called Operation Payback. Nothing illegal, nothing that could be traced back to me. Just a series of small actions designed to make Travis and Carla's lives a little more complicated. It started with Travis's precious BMW. The car was his pride and joy, a symbol of his success and sophistication. Every morning, he'd spend 10 minutes in the parking lot checking for scratches and wiping down the chrome. So when he came out of the office to find his car covered in bird mess, courtesy of the breadcrumbs I'd scattered on the roof, his reaction was everything I'd hoped for. I watched from across the street as he frantically tried to clean off the mess, his expensive suit getting splattered in the process. When he finally gave up and drove away, white streaks still visible on his windshield, I couldn't help but smile. The next day, it was sugar in his gas tank. Nothing that would cause permanent damage, just enough to make his engine run rough and require an expensive trip to the mechanic. The day after that, I called in an anonymous tip to the health department about unusual odors coming from his apartment building's dumpster. The subsequent inspection found nothing wrong, but Travis had to deal with official investigators poking around his home. Each incident was small, easily dismissed as bad luck or coincidence, but together they were starting to wear on him. I could see it in his body language when he walked into the office each morning. The slight hunch of his shoulders, the way his eyes darted around the parking lot looking for new problems. Carla was getting the same treatment, just more subtly. Her favorite coffee shop kept running out of her usual order, thanks to my daily calls claiming to be her assistant placing large orders for pickup. Her dry cleaner kept losing her clothes, requiring multiple trips to sort out the confusion. Her gym membership mysteriously expired, forcing her to pay reinstatement fees. None of it was enough to really hurt them, but it was end by 1,000 cuts. And the best part was they had no idea it was connected. The breakthrough came when Lenny called me with news about the hidden camera system. "I've been monitoring their server," he said. "Guess what? They're still uploading new content. Fresh photos from this week." "That's impossible. I destroyed the cameras in the basement." "Yeah, but there are others. I found 3 more feeds, one in your bedroom, one in the kitchen, and one in the living room. They've been watching everything you do." The violation was complete. Not only had they been documenting Carla's affair, they'd been spying on my every move, waiting for me to do something that would support their mistreat narrative. But now I knew about the cameras, which meant I could control what they saw. That night, I put on a performance worthy of an Oscar. I discovered some of Carla's affair evidence, a receipt from the hotel where they'd been meeting hidden in her purse. I raged around the house, throwing things and shouting about betrayal and divorce. I even punched a wall, making sure to position myself so the hidden cameras would capture my violent outburst. Then I called Carla, knowing she was with Travis, knowing they'd both hear my breakdown. "I know what you've been doing," I said, my voice shaking with carefully manufactured emotion. "I found the hotel receipts, Carla. I know about you and Travis." "Danny, I can explain." "No!" I shouted. "I trusted you. I gave you everything, and you threw it away for that pretty boy." I hung up and threw the phone against the wall, where it shattered in full view of the living room camera. Perfect. Within an hour, Carla was home, her face a mask of concern and guilt. She found me sitting in the dark kitchen, nursing a beer and staring at nothing. "Danny, we need to talk." "Do we, or are you just here to make sure I don't do anything stupid?" She sat across from me, her lawyer instincts kicking in. "I know you're hurt and you have every right to be, but we can work through this. We can go to counseling, figure out how to move forward." It was a good performance, but I could see the calculation behind her eyes. She was already thinking about how this conversation would sound when played back in divorce court. "You want to work through this?" I asked. "After 8 months of sneaking around with Travis? After lying to my face every single day?" "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said, tears starting to form. "It just developed. But it doesn't have to mean the end of our marriage." I almost laughed. Even now she was lying. The files in that hidden room proved this affair had been planned from the beginning, orchestrated by Jenna as part of their exit strategy. "What about Travis? Are you going to stop seeing him?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "I'll transfer to a different department. We don't have to work together anymore." Another lie. According to their emails, they were planning to run away together as soon as the divorce was finalized. "I need time to think," I said finally. It's a lot to process." She nodded, relief flooding her face. "Of course. Take all the time you need. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight." After she went upstairs, I sat in the dark kitchen for another hour, letting the hidden cameras capture my grief. In reality, I was planning my next move. They wanted to play games? Fine. But they were about to learn that I'd been underestimated my entire life, and I was very good at surprising people. The town's annual Founders' Day celebration was the social event of the year, and this year it was being held at the country club, where all the lawyers and doctors liked to pretend they were better than the rest of us. Carla had been looking forward to it for months, a chance to network with potential clients and show off her rising status in the firm. She had no idea it was about to become the most humiliating night of her life. I'd spent 2 weeks preparing for this moment, and everything had to be perfect. The beauty of my plan was its simplicity. I wasn't going to destroy Carla's reputation with lies or manipulation. I was going to let her destroy it herself, using her own words and actions. The hidden camera system that Jenna had installed to spy on me was about to become my greatest weapon. I arrived at the country club early, dressed in my best suit and carrying a small device that Lenny had built for me, a wireless transmitter that could hijack the club's sound system. The device was small enough to hide in my jacket pocket and powerful enough to broadcast to every speaker in the building. The ballroom was already filling up with the town's elite, all dressed to impress and ready to see and be seen. I spotted Carla near the bar, stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Travis was beside her, his hand possessively on her lower back. They looked like the perfect couple, successful, attractive, destined for greatness. Everyone who saw them together would think they belonged with each other, which made what was about to happen even more delicious. I mingled with the crowd, making small talk with people I'd known for years, business owners, city council members, even the mayor, all people who respected me as a hardworking contractor but would never consider me their social equal. Tonight, that was going to change. At exactly 9 o'clock, during the lull between dinner and the evening's entertainment, I activated Lenny's device. The sound system crackled to life, and suddenly Carla's voice filled the ballroom. The house is worth at least $250, even in this market. With his business equipment and the settlement, I should walk away with close to $400,000. Conversation stopped. Heads turned toward the speakers, confusion on every face. Travis's voice followed. What about the mistreat allegations? Jenna's got that covered. We've got photos, audio recordings, even a medical report. Danny's going to look like a textbook case of domestic violence. The color drained from Carla's face as she realized what was happening. She looked frantically around the room, her eyes finally finding mine across the crowded dance floor. I raised my beer bottle in a mock toast. The recording continued. Danny's going to look like a textbook case of domestic violence. No judge will give him anything. And after the divorce? After the divorce, we disappear. Maybe somewhere tropical, somewhere Danny's blue-collar buttocks could never afford to follow us. Their laughter echoed through the stunned silence of the ballroom. By now, everyone was staring at Carla and Travis. The power couple of the evening had become the center of a very different kind of attention. I could see Carla's boss, Harold Brennan, Travis's uncle, and the senior partner of the firm, pushing through the crowd toward them, his face dark with fury. But I wasn't done yet. The next recording was more recent, from just 3 days ago. How's the camera situation? Jenna's voice asked. Perfect, Carla replied. We're getting everything we need. Danny's been acting more aggressive lately. I think the pressure is getting to him. A few more weeks and we'll have enough evidence to bury him. Good. The sooner we can get this divorce moving, the better. Travis is getting impatient. Travis can wait. We do this right or we don't do it at all. I'm not spending the rest of my life looking over my shoulder because we got sloppy. The recording ended, leaving the ballroom in absolute silence. 300 of the town's most prominent citizens had just heard Carla Hoffman admit to fabricating domestic mistreat allegations and planning to defraud her husband in their divorce. Carla was backing toward the exit, her face white as paper. Travis was right behind her, but Harold Brennan blocked their path. My office, Harold said in a voice that could cut glass. First thing Monday morning. They pushed past him and fled the ballroom, leaving behind a wake of shocked whispers and pointed fingers. I finished my beer and walked to the front of the room, where a microphone stood ready for the evening's speeches. The crowd parted before me, and I could feel every eye in the place following my movement. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system, I want to thank you all for listening to that little presentation. As you can probably guess, I'm Danny Hoffman, the blue-collar buttocks my wife was just talking about. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is awkward. This is embarrassing. This is the kind of drama that belongs on daytime TV, not at our nice country club. More chuckles, less nervous now. But here's the thing. I didn't come here tonight to humiliate my wife. I came here to tell you the truth. For months, Carla and her friends have been building a case against me, trying to paint me as an abusive husband so they could take everything I've worked for. I gestured toward the door where Carla and Travis had made their escape. You just heard them admit to fabricating evidence, planning to commit fraud, and conspiring to destroy my reputation. They installed hidden cameras in my home, recorded private conversations, and created fake medical records. Also, they could steal my business and disappear with my money. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. I could have handled this privately. I could have confronted them in court, let the lawyers sort it out, but they made one mistake. They underestimated me. They thought I was just some dumb contractor who wouldn't fight back. I paused, letting that sink in. Well, they were wrong. And now everyone in this room knows exactly what kind of people they really are. I set down the microphone and walked toward the exit, the crowd parting before me like the Red Sea. Behind me, I could hear the explosion of conversation as 300 people began discussing what they'd just witnessed. By morning, the story would be all over town. By the end of the week, it would be impossible for Carla to show her face anywhere in the county. But I still wasn't finished with her. The fallout from the country club incident was everything I'd hoped for and more. By Monday morning, the story had spread through the town like wildfire. The local newspaper ran a front-page article about domestic mistreat allegations under scrutiny, and the State Bar Association announced they were opening an investigation into Carla's conduct. Harold Brennan wasted no time in distancing his firm from the scandal. Both Carla and Travis were suspended pending the outcome of the investigation, and rumors were already circulating that they'd be terminated as soon as the firm's lawyers could figure out how to do it without getting sued. But the real damage was social. In a town this size, reputation was everything, and Carla's was now toxic. The same people who'd once envied her success were now crossing the street to avoid her. The country club had already started proceedings to revoke her membership, and her favorite restaurants were suddenly fully booked whenever she called for reservations. I should have been satisfied. My plan had worked perfectly, and my enemies were suffering the consequences of their actions. But as I sat in that hidden basement room, surrounded by the evidence of their betrayal, I realized that public humiliation wasn't enough. They'd tried to destroy my life. They'd planned to take everything I'd worked for, to paint me as a monster, to leave me with nothing. A little social embarrassment didn't balance those scales. It was time to get creative. The first phase of my escalated campaign targeted Travis's precious self-image. The man was vain to an almost pathological degree. He spent more on grooming products than most people spent on groceries, and his apartment was decorated like a showroom for a men's lifestyle magazine. So I decided to give him a makeover. It started with his gym membership. Travis worked out religiously at the upscale fitness center downtown, the kind of place where the equipment cost more than most people's cars. Using information I'd gathered from the hidden camera feeds, I knew his exact routine. Chest and arms on Mondays, legs on Wednesdays, cardio on Fridays. I also knew he kept his gym bag in his car overnight, too lazy to carry it up to his second-floor apartment. Breaking into the BMW was child's play. Travis was the type who thought expensive cars were immune to crime. Inside his gym bag, I found everything I needed: his protein powder, his pre-workout supplements, even his fancy imported shampoo. The protein powder got a special additive, a harmless but potent laxative that would kick in about 30 minutes after consumption. The pre-workout got a dose of food coloring that would turn his sweat bright orange, and the shampoo received a generous helping of semi-permanent hair dye in a lovely shade of pink. I was careful to use products that wouldn't cause any real damage. I wasn't trying to poison him, just give him a very bad day at the gym. The results exceeded my expectations. According to my sources at the fitness center, Mick knew one of the trainers, Travis had barely made it through his warm-up before rushing to the bathroom. When he emerged 20 minutes later, his face was flushed. His workout clothes were stained with orange sweat, and his perfectly styled hair had taken on a distinctly rosy hue. The humiliation was complete when he tried to shower off the orange stains, only to discover that his hair was now unmistakably pink. He'd left the gym in a panic, a towel wrapped around his head, while other members snapped photos with their phones. By evening, #PinkTravis was trending on the local social media pages. But Travis was just the warm-up act. Jenna Walsh was the real architect of the conspiracy against me, and she deserved special attention. Jenna ran a high-end hair salon called Sheer Perfection, catering to the wives and daughters of the town's elite. It was her pride and joy, the symbol of her success and independence. She'd built it from nothing, and it represented everything she'd worked for, which made it the perfect target. I'd been studying Jenna's routine for weeks, learning her habits and vulnerabilities. She was a creature of habit, first to arrive at the salon each morning, last to leave each night. She did her own books, managed her own inventory, and trusted no one else with the key to her success. That trust was about to cost her everything. The plan required patience and precision. Over the course of 2 weeks, I systematically sabotaged every aspect of Jenna's business. It started small. A few bad online reviews from fake accounts, complaints to the health department about unsanitary conditions, anonymous tips to the IRS about unreported cash transactions. Each incident was minor, easily explained away as bad luck or the actions of a disgruntled customer. But together, they created a pattern of problems that began to erode confidence in the salon. The real coup came when I gained access to Jenna's supplier accounts. Using information from her computer, accessed during a late-night visit to the salon, I was able to change her standing orders. Instead of her usual high-end products, she started receiving shipments of bargain basement supplies. Cheap shampoos that left hair greasy, hair dyes that turned out completely wrong colors, perming solutions that were either too weak or too strong. The results were catastrophic. Within a week, Jenna had 3 clients with damaged hair, 2 with chemical burns, and 1 who'd gone from blonde to green thanks to a mislabeled bottle of toner. The complaints started pouring in, followed by threats of lawsuits. The state licensing board opened an investigation, and Jenna's insurance company began asking uncomfortable questions about her quality control procedures. But the ending blow came when I released the audio recordings of Jenna discussing the conspiracy against me. Her own voice, captured by the surveillance system she'd helped install, admitting to fabricating evidence and planning to frame an innocent man. Her remaining clients fled in droves. Her employees quit rather than be associated with the scandal. Within a month, Sheer Perfection was closed, its windows papered with legal notices and foreclosure warnings. Jenna Walsh, the woman who'd orchestrated my downfall, was now facing bankruptcy and potential criminal charges. But I still wasn't done. Carla was the main prize, and she was going to pay for every day of betrayal, every lie, every moment of humiliation she'd planned for me. The beauty of my final gambit was that it used Carla's own ambitions against her. She'd always prided herself on being smarter than everyone else, more sophisticated, more deserving of success. She looked down on people like me, dismissing us as crude and simple-minded. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The warehouse district down by the old docks had been dying a slow end for 20 years. Most of the buildings stood empty, their broken windows staring out at the polluted river like dead eyes. It was the perfect place for a final confrontation, isolated, abandoned, and far from any potential witnesses. I'd been preparing for this moment for weeks, ever since I'd decided that public humiliation wasn't enough. Carla, Travis, and Jenna had tried to destroy my life with careful planning and ruthless execution. Now it was time to show them what real planning looked like. The warehouse I'd chosen had been abandoned for 5 years, ever since the shipping company that owned it went bankrupt. The building was structurally sound but completely empty, just a vast concrete shell with excellent acoustics and no neighbors to complain about noise. I'd spent 3 days setting up my equipment. Professional lighting rigs borrowed from a friend who did wedding photography, a sound system that could fill the entire space with crystal clear audio, and most importantly, a live streaming setup that would broadcast everything to every social media platform simultaneously. The message I sent to Carla, Travis, and Jenna was simple. Meet me at Warehouse 7, Dock Street, 9 p.m. tonight. Come alone or the whole world sees everything. I knew they'd come. They had to. The evidence I'd gathered from their surveillance system was enough to destroy all 3 of them, professionally, financially, and personally. They'd lost control of the narrative, and this meeting was their only chance to regain it. What they didn't know was that I'd already won. I arrived at the warehouse early, making final adjustments to the equipment and reviewing my notes one last time. Everything had to be perfect. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. These 3 people had conspired to frame me for domestic mistreat, steal my life's work, and destroy my reputation. They'd hidden cameras in my home, fabricated evidence, and planned to leave me with nothing. Tonight, they were going to face the consequences of those choices. Carla arrived first, her silver sedan pulling up to the warehouse entrance at exactly 9 o'clock. She stepped out cautiously, her lawyer instincts clearly on high alert. She was dressed professionally, navy blazer, sensible heels, her hair pulled back in the severe bun she wore to court. Even now she was trying to project authority and control. Travis's BMW arrived 2 minutes later, followed by Jenna's red convertible. They gathered near the entrance, whispering urgently among themselves before approaching the door I'd left unlocked. "Danny!" Carla's voice echoed in the empty space as they entered. "We're here. Let's talk about this like adults." I stepped out of the shadows, and the professional lighting rigs blazed to life, illuminating the center of the warehouse like a stage. The three conspirators squinted in the sudden glare, raising their hands to shield their eyes. "Welcome to the show," I said, my voice amplified by the sound system. "I hope you're ready for your close-up." "What is this?" Travis demanded, his voice cracking slightly. "What are you trying to prove?" "I'm not trying to prove anything," I replied. "I'm going to demonstrate it." I gestured to the cameras positioned around the space, their red recording lights clearly visible. "Say hello to your audience. We're broadcasting live to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Current viewer count is about 300 and climbing fast." Jenna stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. "You can't do this. This is harassment, stalking." "Is it?" I interrupted. "Or is it just giving people the same kind of show you three have been producing for months? The only difference is that my cameras are visible." I clicked a remote control, and the sound system crackled to life with a familiar recording. "We've got photos, audio recordings, even a medical report. Danny's going to look like a textbook case of domestic violence." Carla's face went white as her own voice filled the warehouse. "Turn it off," she whispered. "I don't think so," I said. "See, for months, you've been the director of this little drama, deciding what got recorded and what got hidden. Tonight, I'm in charge of the cameras." The recording continued, playing out the full conversation where they'd discussed framing me for mistreat and stealing my assets. With each damning word, I could see the fight draining out of them. "You want to know the beautiful thing about your surveillance system?" I asked as the recording ended. "It captured everything. Every lie, every scheme, every moment of betrayal. You documented your own crimes." Travis tried to make a run for it, but I'd anticipated that. The warehouse doors were chained shut from the outside. I'd made sure of that before they arrived. The only way out was through me. "Let's talk about consequences," I continued, advancing toward them. "Carla, you're facing disbarment, possible criminal charges for fraud and filing false police reports. Your legal career is over." She was backing away from me now, her professional composure finally cracking. "Danny, please, we can work something out. I'll drop the divorce. We can go to counseling." "Travis," I said, ignoring her pleas, "your uncle fired you yesterday. Word is he's also cutting you out of his will. Something about not wanting the family name associated with criminals." Travis's face crumpled. The inheritance from his uncle had been his backup plan, his safety net. Without it, he was just another unemployed lawyer with a ruined reputation. "And Jenna," I said, turning to the woman who'd orchestrated this entire conspiracy, "how's the salon business these days?" "Oh, that's right. You don't have one anymore." "You destroyed my life!" she screamed, lunging toward me with her fingernails extended like claws. I sidestepped easily, letting her momentum carry her past me. She stumbled and fell, her expensive dress tearing on the rough concrete floor. "I didn't destroy anything," I said calmly. "I just turned your own weapons against you. Every bit of evidence I used came from your surveillance system. Every humiliation you've suffered was broadcast using your own recordings." I walked to the center of the illuminated area, looking directly into the main camera. The viewer count was approaching 2,000 now. Half the town was watching this unfold in real time. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, addressing the audience, "what you've witnessed tonight is the conclusion of a conspiracy that began almost a year ago. These three people installed hidden cameras in my home, fabricated evidence of domestic mistreat, and planned to steal everything I've worked for." Behind me, I could hear Carla sobbing, Travis hyperventilating, and Jenna cursing in a steady stream of profanity. "They thought they were smarter than me," I continued. "They thought I was just some dumb contractor who wouldn't fight back. They were wrong." I clicked the remote again, and a new recording began to play. This one from just 2 days ago. "He's broken. Carla's voice said. After the country club thing, he's been like a zombie. I don't think he has any fight left in him. Good, Jenna replied. The sooner we can finalize this divorce, the better. I'm tired of waiting for our money. Our money? Travis's voice was sharp with suspicion. You know what I mean, Jenna said quickly. Carla's money, which will be our money once you two are married. There was a long pause in the recording. Then Travis spoke again. Married? Who said anything about marriage? The silence that followed was deafening. I mean, we'll be together, Jenna said, her voice uncertain now. That was always the plan, right? The plan was to get the money, Travis replied coldly. After that, we'll see. I stopped the recording and turned back to face my three enemies. They were staring at each other with expressions of shock and betrayal, the bonds of their conspiracy finally dissolving. Funny how quickly partners turn on each other when the money disappears, I observed. Kind of makes you wonder if any of this was ever really about love. Carla was the first to break. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she whispered. We were just going to get divorced, split the assets. The mistreat thing was Jenna's idea. Shut up, Jenna hissed. Don't say another word. Why not? Carla shot back, her grief transforming into rage. It's over. Everything's ruined. At least now people will know whose fault it really was. Travis stepped between them, his face desperate. We can still fix this. We just need to get out of town, start over somewhere else. With what money? Carla laughed bitterly. The firm froze my accounts. The house is in Danny's name. We have nothing. I watched their alliance crumble with deep satisfaction. This was better than any revenge I could have planned. They were destroying each other more effectively than I ever could. Actually, I said, drawing their attention back to me, you do have something left. They looked at me with desperate hope, like drowning people reaching for a life preserver. You have the truth, I continued. And tonight, you're going to tell it. I gestured to the cameras again. 2,000 people are watching right now. By tomorrow, it'll be 20,000. You can spend the rest of your lives running from this story, or you can take control of it. What do you want? Carla asked. I want you to tell everyone exactly what you did. I want you to admit that you fabricated the mistreat allegations, that you installed illegal surveillance equipment, that you conspired to commit fraud. I want the truth, on camera, witnessed by thousands of people. And if we do that? Travis asked. What then? Then you face the consequences of your actions like adults, I replied. No more lies, no more schemes, just the truth and whatever justice follows. They looked at each other, weighing their options. But we all knew they didn't really have a choice. The evidence against them was overwhelming, and running would only make things worse. Carla stepped forward first, her shoulders squared with the dignity she'd once brought to the courtroom. My name is Carla Hoffman, she said, looking directly into the camera, and I want to tell you about the worst mistake of my life. For the next hour, they confessed everything. The planning, the surveillance, the fabricated evidence, all of it laid bare before an audience that grew larger by the minute. By the time they finished, nearly 5,000 people were watching the stream, and the local news stations were already picking up the story. When it was over, I walked to the warehouse doors and removed the chains, freeing my former enemies to face whatever consequences awaited them outside. One more thing, I said as they prepared to leave. The divorce papers you filed, I'm not contesting them. You can have your freedom, Carla, but you're not getting a penny of my money. She nodded, too broken to argue. As they walked out into the night, I turned back to the cameras one final time. Justice isn't always about courts and lawyers, I said to my audience. Sometimes it's about making sure the truth gets told, no matter how ugly it might be. These three people tried to destroy an innocent man's life for their own gain. Tonight they faced the consequences of that choice. I clicked off the cameras and began packing up my equipment. Tomorrow the whole world would know the truth about Carla Hoffman, Travis Brennan, and Jenna Walsh. Their conspiracy had failed, their reputations were destroyed, and their futures were uncertain. But I would go home to my house, not ours anymore, and sleep peacefully for the first time in months. They thought they could wire me for failure, that they could control the narrative and manipulate the outcome. But they'd made one crucial error. They'd underestimated the power of the truth. And now, everyone knew exactly who the real sufferers and villains were in this story.